You know how in every relationship, there always seems to be one person who's just a little more responsible, more organized, and more prepared for adulthood? Well, in our case, that person is me. I'm 24 years old, and my boyfriend is 25. When we first started dating, I thought we were both in similar places in life, trying to figure things out, working toward independence, and building our futures. At least, that's what I assumed at first. When we met, he told me that he was almost done with his driving lessons. In fact, he only had 2 in-car sessions left before he could finally take his driving test. And when it came to finances, he explained that he didn't have a credit card yet, but only because he wanted to wait until he landed a good corporate job before applying. To me, that all sounded completely reasonable. I thought, great, he's being cautious. He doesn't want to take on debt without being stable first. That's actually pretty smart. At that point, I had already taken care of those things myself. I had my driver's license, and I had opened a credit card to start building my credit. So, I figured he'd just get to it when the timing was right. No big deal. But then something strange started to happen. The closer we got, the more comfortable he became. The less effort he seemed to put into those milestones. It was as if, the moment he found out I already had those things, a license and a credit card, he just stopped trying. Completely. Those last 2 driving sessions, he never scheduled them. That credit card he said he'd apply for after getting a job, he never did. And it wasn't like he didn't have the means to do it, because eventually, he did get that corporate job. A decent one too. But even with the financial stability he had been waiting for, he still didn't make the move. Instead, he found little workarounds. He relied on his debit card most of the time, occasionally borrowed his mum's credit card, and sometimes asked if he could use mine. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone has their quirks, right? But as time went on, I started to notice a pattern. A pattern that made me feel more like a parent than a partner. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not stingy. I don't mind helping when it's truly urgent or important. But I also don't want to be taken advantage of. And when someone has a steady income and is fully capable of handling things themselves, yet constantly leans on me to fill in the gaps, it starts to feel unfair, and it wasn't just about money. The driving situation bothered me even more. For the past 2 years, I've been the only one driving us everywhere. Dates, errands, events, you name it. If we needed to get somewhere, it was automatically my responsibility. My car, my gas, my time. Whenever I gently brought it up, I thought he'd maybe understand where I was coming from. I'd say things like, hey, don't you think it'd be good to finish your lessons? It'd give you more freedom and it'd take some pressure off me. Or, wouldn't it be smart to get a credit card and start building credit now while you have a steady job? But instead of hearing me out, he'd get defensive. Every single time. He'd accuse me of nagging, of pushing him too hard, or even being controlling. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't asking him to do anything unreasonable. These were just normal adult responsibilities. From where I was standing, it didn't look like caution anymore. It looked like laziness, a complete unwillingness to step up, simply because he knew that I already had everything covered. And that realization stung, because instead of feeling like I had a partner to share life with, I was starting to feel like I had a dependent, like I was the one carrying the weight of adulthood for both of us, while he just coasted along in the passenger seat. Literally and figuratively. That was the moment I began to question, is this just how he is? Or am I enabling him by always stepping in? Those 2 last driving lessons, he never finished them. That shiny corporate job he was so focused on, he got it, but even then, he didn't bother applying for his own credit card. It was almost like he believed he didn't need to anymore. Instead, he fell into this strange cycle. He used his debit card for most things, but whenever a situation popped up where a credit card would have made sense, like online purchases or reservations, he'd scramble. Sometimes he'd borrow his mum's card, and more often than not, he'd come to me. "Babe, can I just use your card real quick? I'll pay you back." At first, I tried to be understanding. Relationships are about compromise, right? And if he needed a hand every once in a while, it wasn't the end of the world. But as time went on, it started to feel less like occasional help and more like a habit. And the thing is, I'm not stingy. I'm not the type to keep score or refuse to help when it really matters. But I also don't want to feel like someone's personal bank account. I work hard for my money, I pay my bills, and I manage my finances responsibly. So when he leaned on me for things he should have already been handling himself, it left a bitter taste. But honestly, the money part wasn't even the worst of it. What really started to weigh on me was the driving situation. For 2 whole years, I've been the one behind the wheel. Every date, every event, every random grocery run. It was always me. My car, my gas, my time. Sometimes, after a long day at work, the last thing I wanted to do was drive across town to pick him up. But I did it anyway, because I wanted us to spend time together. And yet, despite all that, he never once made the effort to finish his lessons and get his license. The few times I brought it up, I tried to keep it lighthearted. "Hey, don't. You miss driving. You'd have so much more freedom if you got your license." Or, "Wouldn't it be nice if I could just sit back and let you drive us for once?" But his response was always the same, defensive. He'd roll his eyes or sigh loudly. "You're nagging again." Or worse, "Why are you trying to control me? I'll do it when I feel like it." And that's when it really started to sink in. He didn't see these things as priorities at all. He didn't view driving or building credit as basic adult responsibilities. Instead, he acted like I was pushing him too hard, like I was demanding something unreasonable. But from where I was standing, it looked like laziness, plain and simple. Because let's be real, how hard is it to book 2 more driving lessons and show up for a test? How hard is it to apply for a basic credit card, especially when you already have a stable job? These weren't huge obstacles. They were small steps that could make his life, and honestly, our life, easier. Instead, he chose to lean on me, and every time he brushed off my concerns, I couldn't help but feel the weight of it all pressing down on me. It made me question where we stood as a couple. Was I his partner, or was I his crutch? Was I enabling his procrastination by always stepping in when he refused to act? Because the truth is, I didn't sign up to be someone's chauffeur, someone's lender, or someone's excuse for not growing up. I wanted a boyfriend, an equal, someone who could stand on his own 2 feet. And the longer this went on, the more I started to realize maybe I wasn't going to get that with him. Fast forward to last month, Comic-Con was finally coming to our city. Now, if you've ever been to one of these conventions, you know just how electric the atmosphere is. It's not just an event, it's an experience. Thousands of people gather in one place, dressed in cosplay, walking around with prop weapons, elaborate costumes, and the kind of energy that makes the whole city buzz. For me, Comic-Con had always been something on my bucket list. I love the idea of panels where actors shared behind-the-scenes stories, artists displaying their work, and rows of exclusive merch you couldn't find anywhere else. But this year was special. There was one actor in particular coming, someone my boyfriend and I both admired. We'd binge-watched his shows, quoted his lines, and even argued over which of his characters was the best. Seeing him in person was the kind of once-in-a-lifetime opportunity I didn't want to miss. So naturally, I did what I always do. I planned ahead. I jumped online, grabbed my ticket early, and felt that wave of relief, knowing I was all set. It felt good to be prepared, to know I wouldn't have to stress or scramble at the last minute. I even brought it up to my boyfriend, reminding him that these events tend to sell out fast. But his response, a casual shrug and a dismissive laugh. Relax, he told me. I'll figure it out. It's not that serious. Not that serious. To me, it was. Not just because of the AITA, but because I knew how big events like this worked. Tickets vanish in the blink of an eye. If you wait too long, you either don't get in, or you spend half the day waiting in line while everyone else is inside, having fun. I tried not to push too hard though. Over the past 2 years, I'd learned that bringing up things like responsibility or planning ahead often ended with him calling me a nag. And honestly, I didn't want to ruin the excitement I felt by getting into yet another argument. So, I let it go. Still, in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but wonder, what was he waiting for? He had the money. He had the opportunity. He knew how important this event was to both of us. Yet he just didn't move. Part of me held on to a little hope. Maybe, just maybe, he'd surprise me this time. Maybe he'd take initiative and buy his pass at the last minute, and we'd laugh about how worried I'd been. I wanted to believe that, even though deep down, I already knew how this was going to play out, because this wasn't new. This was a pattern. He always waited until the last possible second, whether it was buying tickets, making plans, or even paying bills. And when things didn't work out, guess who usually had to step in and fix it? Me. So as much as I wanted to enjoy the build-up to Comic-Con, there was this nagging voice in my head, whispering that history was about to repeat itself. That when the moment came, I'd once again be the one carrying the responsibility while he scrambled and blamed bad luck. But I pushed that thought aside. I had my ticket, my plans, and my excitement. I was determined not to let his indecision ruin this for me. And maybe that's what made the next part sting even more. Because when the big moment came, instead of stepping up, he fell back on the same old routine. A few days before the event, I had to go out of town for work. Everything was going smoothly, until my phone buzzed with a message from him. I picked it up, expecting something sweet, maybe a "miss you" text, or even just a casual update. But when I opened it, I nearly laughed out loud in disbelief. "Hey, can I use your credit card to buy my Comic-Con pass?" I swear I rolled my eyes so hard I saw my brain. This was it, the breaking point. After 2 years of excuses, procrastination, and relying on me for everything from rides to finances, he was back at it again, waiting until the very last second, and then leaning on me to solve his problem. I stared at that text for a long moment, and the frustration that had been building for months finally boiled over. How many times had I reminded him? How many times had I told him, "Get your own credit card. It's not that hard." And yet, here we were, Comic-Con just days away, and he still hadn't figured it out. So I typed the simplest, most honest response I could. No. And to make sure I wouldn't get dragged into a flood of arguments, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb right after. When I finally checked my phone later that night, I wasn't surprised to see what was waiting for me. Dozens of notifications, missed calls, texts, voicemails, the works. He had absolutely spammed me. I scrolled through them, and it was all the same. "Please, just this once. It's the last day to buy online. Why can't you help me? You know I'll pay you back. Now I'll have to stand in line forever." It was like watching a meltdown in real time. All because he refused to take care of something he should have done months ago. And you know what? I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. Because here's the thing. This wasn't an emergency. It wasn't like his car had broken down or he was short on rent. This was Comic-Con. Fun, yes, but hardly life or death. I reminded him, calmly, firmly, that none of this would even be an issue if he had his own credit card. That's what adults do when they have jobs. They prepare for situations like this. They don't wait until the last second and then dump it on someone else to fix. His response, nothing. Absolute silence. Not an apology. Not even an excuse this time. Just silence. And honestly, that silence told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't that he couldn't get a credit card. It was that he didn't want to. Because as long as I was around, picking up the slack, there was no reason for him to step up. But here's the problem. I wasn't his mom. I wasn't his babysitter. And I wasn't going to let myself be treated like his personal backup plan anymore. In that moment, sitting there with my phone in my hand, I realized something important. His choices weren't just about him. They were affecting me, my time, my money, my patience. And if I kept giving in, nothing would ever change. So, I set my phone down, took a deep breath, and let the silence sit. For once, I didn't rush to fix it. I didn't cave. And honestly, it felt like the first time in this relationship that I truly stood my ground. Finally, the big day arrived, and I swear I woke up with the kind of excitement most people only feel on Christmas morning. Comic-Con wasn't just another event for me. It was something I had been looking forward to for months. Panels with our favorite actors, cosplayers walking around like they'd stepped right out of another universe, exclusive merch that sells out in minutes. It was pure magic. I had my badge ready, my bag packed with snacks, a water bottle, and even a portable charger because I knew I'd be snapping photos non-stop. I had a few friends meeting me inside, and the plan was to soak up every single moment of the day. My boyfriend, well, let's just say his morning wasn't quite as smooth. Because of his procrastination, shocking I know, he didn't have a ticket yet. I had warned him weeks ago. I reminded him multiple times about how quickly tickets sell out, how crazy the lines get, and how important it was to be prepared. But every time, he brushed me off with that same nonchalant line, "Relax, I'll figure it out." So while I was breezing past security and scanning my pre-purchased badge, he was stuck outside in the scorching sun, forced to stand in the endless line for last-minute buyers. And trust me when I say, if you've ever been to Comic-Con, you know those lines aren't just long. They're brutal. We're talking thousands of people snaking around blocks, waiting for hours just to get in. By the time he got in line, the crowd was already massive, and the wait time was stretching longer and longer by the minute. I could only imagine his frustration, watching cosplayers and excited fans already pouring into the venue while he stood there inching forward at a snail's pace. I was inside, living the dream, while he was outside, sweating it out with the other procrastinators. After almost 2 hours of this, my phone buzzed. It was him. I answered, and immediately I could hear the irritation in his voice. "Babe, this is ridiculous," he snapped. "The line isn't even moving. I've already wasted half my morning out here. Do you want to just grab lunch before you go back in?" I stopped walking for a second, just letting his words sink in. Honestly, I wasn't even surprised. It was the same pattern all over again. He had given up before he even made it to the front. And here's the thing. I did feel a little bad. I mean, no one enjoys standing in the hot sun for hours, watching everyone else have fun without them. But at the same time, another part of me couldn't help but think, this didn't have to happen. He had every chance to avoid this, and he chose not to. This is on him. Still, I agreed to meet him. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was habit, but I thought the least I could do was grab lunch with him before going back inside. After all, I didn't want the whole day to spiral into an argument, so I left the buzzing halls of Comic-Con behind for a little while, promising myself that once lunch was over, I was diving back into the fun. As I walked out to meet him, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Disappointment in him, frustration at the situation, but also determination not to let his lack of preparation ruin my day. He, on the other hand, looked utterly defeated when I finally saw him. Shoulders slumped, face flushed from the heat. His whole body screamed, "I give up." And in that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't just about Comic-Con. It wasn't just about a ticket, or a line, or missing out on panels. This was about a pattern where he avoided responsibility until it was too late, and then expected me to soften the blow. That day, standing outside the convention center with him, I decided I wasn't going to let his choices dictate my experiences anymore. I'd meet him for lunch, yes, but after that, I was going back inside. This was my day too, and I wasn't going to miss out just because he hadn't planned ahead. We met up at a small diner just a block away from the convention center. He slumped into the booth across from me, shoulders sagging, his expression a mix of exhaustion and irritation. The waitress came by with menus, but he barely looked at his. I could tell he was still stewing over the whole ordeal outside. I tried to keep the mood light, cracking a few jokes, asking about what he wanted to eat, but he only gave half-hearted responses. When the food came, we picked at our meals, making small talk that never really went anywhere. He complained about the line, about how poorly organized it was, about how unfair it felt that people with pre-bought tickets could just waltz in while he was stuck outside. I didn't bother pointing out that I had reminded him to buy his ticket weeks ago. That conversation had been had too many times already, and I wasn't in the mood for another argument. So instead, I just nodded, listened, and tried to move things along. After lunch, I walked him to the subway station. He didn't say much, just kissed me on the cheek and muttered something about going home to relax. I waved as he disappeared down the steps, then turned right back around toward the convention center with a burst of energy. And let me tell you, once I got back inside, I felt like I was stepping into another world. The energy in the halls was electric, the kind that makes your skin buzz with excitement. People were everywhere, dressed as superheroes, anime characters, video game icons. It was like being inside a moving, breathing comic book. I found my friends, and together, we dove into the fun. We sat in on panels with actors I'd admired for years, listening to them share behind-the-scenes stories and answer fan questions. The whole room would erupt in laughter or gasps at the same time, and it felt like being part of a giant family, all connected by the same passion. I browsed the artist alley, talking to creators and buying prints that I knew I'd treasure. I even snagged some exclusive merch I'd been eyeing for months. The kind of stuff you can only get at events like this. Every corner I turned had something new and exciting to see. By the time the day was winding down, my feet ached, my bag was stuffed, and my phone was filled with photos. But more than anything, I couldn't stop smiling. I felt alive, like a kid again, swept up in a world that was bigger, brighter, and more magical than everyday life. And deep down, I was proud of myself for not letting his lack of preparation steal that from me. Later that evening, when everything wrapped up and I finally got home, I gave him a call. I wanted to check in, to see how the rest of his day had gone. He sounded relaxed, maybe even a little bored. He told me he had run a couple of errands, then lounged around the apartment, scrolling on his phone and watching TV. Nothing particularly exciting, nothing worth remembering. Then he asked me about my day, and I couldn't help it. I launched right in, bubbling over with excitement. I told him about the panels, the cosplay, the incredible atmosphere. I told him about the exclusive merch, about meeting other fans who shared the same passions, about how it felt to be completely immersed in something I loved. I wasn't bragging. I wasn't trying to rub it in his face. I was just happy, and I wanted to share that happiness with him. But then it happened. There was a pause on the other end of the line, long enough that I pulled the phone away from my ear, wondering if the call had dropped. Then I heard his voice again, sharp with disbelief. "Wait, you still went?" The words hit me like a bucket of cold water. For a second, I didn't even know how to respond. Of course I went. Why wouldn't I? I had been planning this for months. I had my ticket, my friends, my excitement. I wasn't going to throw all that away just because he hadn't planned ahead. But the way he said it, like I had somehow betrayed him by enjoying myself, stung. It wasn't just shock in his voice. It was judgment, and that was the moment I realized. It wasn't just that he had missed out. It was that he wanted me to miss out too. When I said, "Of course I went, I bought a pass," it was like I had just lit a fuse. The silence on the line only lasted a second, but I could practically feel it crackling with tension. Then it happened. He absolutely lost it. His voice came through the phone, sharp, loud, and filled with anger. "Are you serious right now? You still went, after everything? Do you even care about me at all?" I sat there frozen, holding the phone to my ear, completely blindsided by his tone. I had expected him to maybe sound disappointed, maybe even sulk a little. But this was rage. He didn't stop there. He launched straight into accusations, his words firing off like rapid bullets. "You're selfish. You only think about yourself. You knew I wanted to go, and you just waltzed right in without me. Do you know how crappy that feels? To stand in line for hours while you're inside having fun. And you couldn't even wait for me." I opened my mouth to respond, but he kept going, louder now, cutting me off before I could get a word in. "This is your fault. You didn't help me enough. You knew I didn't have a ticket, and you just..." "What? Left me to figure it out on my own? If you actually wanted me there, you could have let me use your card to buy one last minute. It's not like you couldn't afford it. But no, you had to make it all about you." Each word stung, not because they were true, but because of how twisted they were. I had offered help weeks ago, begged him to buy his ticket before it sold out, even reminded him multiple times. He was the one who brushed me off every single time. And now he was acting like his lack of planning was somehow my responsibility. And then he said it. The line that made my stomach drop and my jaw clench. "If you actually loved me, you wouldn't have gone without me. You would have ditched the convention and stayed with me. Or at the very least, you would have driven me all the way home instead of dumping me at the subway like some random stranger." My mouth went dry. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was he really measuring my love for him by whether or not I was willing to throw away something I had planned and saved for months? All because he couldn't be bothered to get his act together. I stared at my phone, gripping it tightly, my heart pounding in my chest, not from guilt, not from regret, but from sheer disbelief at how unfair he was being. I had bought my pass months ago. I had budgeted for it, planned my schedule around it, even coordinated with friends to meet up. I had looked forward to this day like a kid counting down to Christmas morning. And now, suddenly, I was the villain, just because he hadn't done the bare minimum to prepare. I finally found my voice. It was shaky, but steady enough to make my point. "No, Absolutely not. This isn't on me. I bought my ticket. I made plans. You procrastinated, and that's not my problem. Don't twist this around and act like I did something wrong. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Heavy, charged silence. I could almost picture him on the other end, seething, searching for a comeback that would land harder. And then, click, he hung up, just like that. I stared at the screen in disbelief, my chest tight, my hands trembling. He hadn't wanted to listen. He hadn't wanted to take responsibility. Instead, he had chosen to punish me with anger, with guilt, with the slam of a disconnected call. And that's when it hit me. This fight wasn't about Comic-Con. Not really. It was about something bigger, something that had been simmering between us for a long time. Because if someone can make you feel guilty for enjoying something you worked hard for, if they can twist your happiness into selfishness, then maybe the real problem isn't the missed convention. Maybe the problem is them. I sat there staring at the screen. The call ended, my chest tight, my heart still pounding. My phone felt heavier than it should have, like it was carrying the weight of everything he had just thrown at me. I couldn't believe that instead of being happy for me, instead of admitting that maybe he had just messed up by not planning ahead, he had chosen to lash out at me. He had decided the easiest option was to make me the bad guy. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying his words over and over again, especially that line. If you loved me, you would have ditched the convention for me. It spun in my head like a broken record. The more I thought about it, the more wrong it felt. Was love really supposed to be measured by how quickly I was willing to give up something meaningful to me, just so he wouldn't feel left out? The next morning, we exchanged what I can only describe as surface-level apologies. You know the type. The awkward, stiff kind of text where you both say, "Sorry for yelling," or "Sorry for snapping," but neither of you actually digs into the real problem. It was more about patching things up so the day could continue, rather than addressing what had actually happened. I sent him a message like, "Sorry if I sounded harsh. I didn't mean to upset you." And he replied, "Yeah, sorry for losing. Michael." I was just frustrated, and that was it. No real discussion, no accountability, just a thin coat of paint over a crack in the wall. But the truth? His words stuck with me. It wasn't just the yelling. It was the meaning behind what he said. He had basically admitted, whether he realized it or not, that in his mind, my love for him was conditional. Conditional on how much I was willing to sacrifice for him, even when he was the one who had dropped the ball. He wanted me to prove my love by choosing him over my own joy, my own effort, my own plans. And that thought has stayed with me like a shadow. Even now, weeks later, I can't shake it. It lingers every time I think back to Comic-Con. A memory that should have been completely joyful, but now feels tainted by guilt and tension. Worse, he hasn't let it go either. It's been a month, and he still brings it up in little jabs. Not in full-blown arguments. At least, not anymore. But in those sly, offhand comments that sound like jokes on the surface, but carry resentment underneath. Too bad I didn't get to go to Comic-Con, he'll say, glancing at me with a smirk. Then he adds, "Guess some people didn't care enough to make it happen." Every time, I force a tight smile, pretending I don't hear the bitterness behind his words. But inside, I feel the frustration rising up all over again. It's like the fight never ended. It just changed shape, slipping into something quieter, but sharper. And here's the part that eats at me. Deep down, I know I did nothing wrong. I wasn't cruel. I didn't abandon him. I simply went to an event I had planned for months, one that I had saved money for, one that was mine to enjoy. His lack of planning wasn't my responsibility to fix. But somehow, in his mind, I'm still the villain. The selfish girlfriend. The one who didn't love him enough to give it all up for him. And that realization, it's the part I can't shake. Because once someone starts making you feel guilty for protecting your own happiness, once they start twisting love into sacrifice on their terms, you start to wonder, is this really about Comic-Con? Or is this about something much deeper? And here's where I'm torn. Even though deep down I know I didn't do anything wrong, a small part of me keeps circling back to the same thought. Could I have avoided all this drama if I had just handed him my credit card? It's a thought that sneaks up on me in the quiet moments, when I'm brushing my teeth at night, when I'm sitting on the train to work, when I'm scrolling aimlessly on my phone. My brain replays the scene over and over again, like a broken record. Him asking, me saying no, the argument exploding, and I start to wonder, what if I had just said yes? Maybe it would have saved me the headache. Maybe it would have spared me from the yelling, from the guilt trips, from the lingering tension that has stretched on for weeks now. Maybe he would have gotten his pass, joined me at the convention, and the whole day would have been less tense. But then, every single time, I stop myself, because the truth is, why should I have to? He's not a teenager asking his mum for gas money. He's an adult with a job, with an income, with every opportunity to manage his own responsibilities. There is nothing stopping him from getting his own credit card. Nothing stopping him from planning ahead like I did. Nothing stopping him from finally finishing those driving lessons he keeps putting off. And yet, somehow, in his version of the story, I'm the one who ruined everything. That's the part that eats at me. The way he flips the narrative so easily, like a magician doing a card trick. 1 second, I'm the girlfriend who planned ahead, saved money, and followed through. The next second, I'm suddenly the selfish one for not dropping everything to cover for him. And here's the thing. I'm not made of stone. Words stick. Accusations stick. Even when I tell myself they're unfair, even when I know they're not true, they still find a way to burrow into my head. And I can't lie. It plants this tiny seed of doubt in me. Am I being too harsh? Am I making this bigger than it needs to be? Should I have just helped him out, even if it was inconvenient? That's what happens when you're with someone who shifts blame. You start questioning your own reality. It's like standing in front of a funhouse mirror. You know you're seeing a distorted reflection, but if you stare long enough, you start to believe maybe that is what you look like. But then, thankfully, something else kicks in. I start to think about how many times this exact pattern has repeated itself. How many times his lack of planning, his procrastination, his forgetfulness has somehow turned into my responsibility to fix. Like the time he forgot to pay his phone bill and expected me to spot him the money so his service wouldn't get cut off. Or the time he waited until the last second to buy his mom a birthday gift and pressured me into rushing around town to help him find something. Or the countless times I've had to rearrange my schedule because he didn't manage his properly. And the worst part, most of the time I've given in. I've gone along with it just to keep the peace, just to avoid a fight, just to stop the guilt trips. And that's when the doubt fades into something else, frustration. Because I realize this isn't about Comic-Con at all. It's about a pattern where he doesn't take responsibility. I swoop in to fix it. And somehow, in the end, I still come out looking like the bad guy. And when I think about it like that, the question isn't whether I was too harsh this one time. The question is, how much longer am I willing to play this role? Because here's the truth. At this point, I feel more like his mom than his girlfriend. And it's not just about Comic-Con. When I step back and look at the bigger picture, I see the same dynamic playing out in so many parts of our relationship. I'm the one reminding him about deadlines. I'm the one keeping track of bills. I'm the one double-checking that important things actually get done. I'm the one managing the fallout when he drops the ball, and him, instead of stepping up or even just admitting, "Yeah, I messed up," he finds ways to twist the story until somehow, unbelievably, I'm the one at fault. It's like being caught in a game where the rules change every 5 minutes, but I'm the only one who doesn't get a say, and every time it happens, every time he flips the narrative and casts himself as the victim, something inside me shuts down just a little more. A piece of me checks out. I can feel it happening. The way my patience thins. The way my sympathy dries up. The way my energy drains away. Because the truth is, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to always be the responsible one. To always carry the weight while he gets to shrug his shoulders and act like life is just unfair to him. And when I think about it, the exhaustion doesn't even come from the tasks themselves. It comes from the imbalance, from knowing that if I don't pick up the slack, things won't get done. And then I'll still be the one blamed for it somehow. That's the part that eats at me. Not just the unfairness of the situation, but the way he makes me question myself in the process. And that's left me with this question I can't shake. Am I really the bad guy here for not lending him my credit card? Because sometimes, when his words echo in my head, "If you really cared, you would have helped me out," I almost start to believe him. I almost start to wonder if maybe I was too rigid, too unkind, too unwilling to bend for the sake of keeping the peace. But then I snap back to reality. Because if love means I have to constantly sacrifice my happiness, my boundaries, my plans, just to cover for his irresponsibility, then what kind of love is that really? Isn't love supposed to be about partnership, about support, about lifting each other up, not dragging each other down? And if I'm being brutally honest with myself, maybe the real problem isn't Comic-Con at all. Maybe the real problem is him. The problem is the way he refuses to grow up, the way he chooses the easy route every time and then leans on me when the consequences hit, the way he expects me to carry not just myself, but him too. And the scariest part, I think I'm finally starting to see it. I'm starting to see that this isn't about one fight or one missed event. It's about a pattern that won't change unless he chooses to change, and I'm not sure he wants to. A pattern that leaves me drained, resentful, and questioning myself more than I should. So no, I don't think I'm the bad guy for not handing over my credit card. If anything, I think I've been far too generous for far too long. The real question isn't whether I was wrong in that moment. The real question is whether I want to keep playing this role forever.